All right, next up, let's talk about pulling. How do you get the girl to actually go home with you, and how do you do it on purpose? Okay. Most guys have a couple different issues with pulling. Issue number one that guys have with pulling is they never ask. They stay there and stay there and stay there, talk to the girl and hope that it goes really well, and at the end of the night, the lights come up and like, okay, so it was nice meeting you, and the girl's like, yeah, sure, take my number. And they take a number and that's that. Okay, that's number one. Number two thing that guys do is they do that same wait around thing. Maybe they show some sexual intent, and then at the end of the night, they're like, okay, so let's go to my place. And just out of nothing, they just drop this huge invitation, and then they get every objection in the book. Like, well, no, I have to get up early in the morning. I'm here with my friends. I'm not that kind of girl, and you should take me on a date maybe, but all this different stuff. And the major issue is that they tried to they didn't try to pull at all, or they tried to pull in one move. Okay, pulling is not a one move thing. Pulling is something that starts at the very beginning of the interaction, and it's a theme that exists throughout the entire interaction if done properly. So I look at pulling as a 4-step process, and it's this. Okay. Seed, frame, qualify, lead. Okay. Seeding the pull means bringing up the idea of you and her doing something together as early as possible. Okay? And there's a couple of reasons for this. One, you're going to find out a lot about the situation. You may find out that this girl's impossible to pull tonight. You might find out that she's with her family and she's a designated driver, and that she lives like an hour and a half away, and all kinds of things that make it impossible to pull. And if that's the case, you need to shift your focus from trying to pull her to maybe trying to get a solid phone number and then continue with your night, or trying to if you really like her, get a really solid phone number and then just follow it up that way. Okay? So you're going to get a lot of information by seeding at number one. Number two, if it is pullable, you still might find out what some of the objections are, and that's a good thing. Okay? You want to hear the objections. You want to hear the objections at the start of the night when you still have time to get to know her more and take care of them, rather than at the end of the night when there's no more time. Okay? You'd rather hear them an hour and a half from the close of the club when you can frame the interaction and solve them than when the lights come up and you're getting shoved out the door and you don't know what to do. Okay? So that's very important to seed it for that reason as well. And then also, it just establishes the right premise. It really establishes the right premise, the right idea. The other thing actually with seeding, if you're putting out into the conversation a lot of different ideas of things that you could do, you're going to find out what things she's on board with and what things she isn't. Right? It may be that you're really into grabbing another drink late night. It may be that she doesn't drink that heavily, or she has to work in the morning, and the drinking thing isn't going to work very well in that particular case. Or maybe she's already had too much to drink and you actually don't want that. Well, you're going to find out some of that information when you start suggesting it. Maybe there's something else, like you have some common musical interest, and that's the best reason ever to bring her to your place to listen to records with you, or who knows what. Okay? So you're going to find out what the venue change options, what the pull possibilities that she's into are, so that when you actually do pull, you pull for something that's exciting to her, interesting to her, as opposed to something that turns her off. Right? If you want to pull for pizza and she's allergic to cheese, it would have been cool if you found that out at the start instead of right at the end. Okay, so that's why seeding is so important, all those different reasons. You need to get the information and you need to put it out there that it's a possibility. Okay, next is frame. Here's the key thing here. Going home with you should be a win for her and not a loss for her. Okay? Think about her telling her friends about the experience the next day. If her story to her friends is, yeah, I met this horny guy and he wanted to fuck me, and I just gave in and fucked him. Is that a story she wants to tell her friends the next day? Not really, right? But if it was, so I met this really cool guy, and at first he seemed like a little too cool or whatever, but then I got to know him a little better and I realized he was actually a genuine person. We had this great connection, and I didn't think he liked me at first, but I won him over and we went home and we had this amazing time together. That's a much better story for her to tell her friends, right? And a key element of that is you being cool and then her winning you over, right? It's that you're not a foregone conclusion. It's that she had to work for you, because people value what they work for. It's like in negotiations, a lot of people, even if like you make a first offer to someone, they won't take it because they feel like you didn't make your best offer because they didn't have to work for it. So it devalues the offer, right? If she doesn't have to work for you, it devalues you. Okay, so setting up a frame where she's chasing you, you're high value. She has to, what you talked earlier about qualifying the girl a bit. Very, very, very important. Qualifying throughout, okay? And that brings us actually to exactly qualifying, which is the next stage, right? If she feels like you would have taken any girl home, it's not much of a win for her. If she feels like you specifically chose her because she won you over, because she was special, because you had a good connection, that's a lot easier for her to justify. So qualifying is very good. It also will help a lot when it comes time to getting home, having less last minute resistance, avoiding point of no return, all those kind of things. Because if she's chasing you and she's in the frame of selling herself to you and you're buying, then everything else gets easier. Okay, so I'll give you an example of this. One of my favorite infield samples I have. Basically, I'm talking to the girl, and this is in Vegas, so I give her my, we should go check out my favorite place, or I kind of want to take you to my favorite place in Vegas, but I'm not so sure, which, by the way, is framing it, as in she has to win me over, right? And she says, so eventually she's curious, and she says, okay, sounds good. What is it? So she basically is bought in. She's going to come. She goes, what is it? And a lot of guys, there's 3 types of guys. First type of guy would just keep talking to her, and that's the worst move. Just like she's already agreed, you're talking to her, that's stupid. The guy who's a little more intermediate, he'd be like, okay, cool, let's go, and just start walking out with her. And that's pretty good, but it's not the best. What I actually did when she's like, what is it? I go, well, it's actually, wait, are you adventurous? Right? She goes, yeah, I'm adventurous. Okay, well, in that case, we can go, but like, I have to be back soon, so like we're gonna go, look, leave. We're not gonna stay long, okay? Like, don't try and keep me there. If you're okay with that, we can go, all right? Right? And so now I've framed the whole thing as she's winning by getting my time. It's not even like I didn't want to do this to her. It's something I'm willing to do with her because I like her. And in order to get there, she had to qualify that she was adventurous, and she had to qualify that she'll be cool and not try and keep me there, right? So she really had to win me over. She really had to work for me. And that makes it much, much easier once we get there, okay? And then the final thing is lead. Once you've done these proper things, seed, frame, qualify, she's down, you've set the groundwork, she's ready to go. At that point, you need to just start walking, all right? There's this term SCO. It's a contraction of the word let's and go, all right? It's not, maybe would you like to possibly come with me because I think it'd be really, it's not, no, it's SCO. And you start walking, okay? And that's a word, it's also an attitude. You don't actually literally have to say SCO, but you should have the attitude behind it, which is it's such a foregone conclusion that it's gonna happen that I'm just gonna go, I'm just gonna lead, all right? Now, if you walked into and just talked to a girl for like 2 minutes and didn't know her and you're like, SCO, is she gonna go with you? No, she's not probably, right? But if you've seated it properly, you've framed it properly, you've qualified her properly, at that time, SCO, okay? It's important that you lead, it's masculine, it's dominant, it conveys value, and it gets things moving. Just getting her feet moving in the right direction is a big part of the process, okay? So that's the pulling process. Seed it as early as possible, frame it so that she wins, qualify her, make her feel like she was special for it to happen. It's not like you would have done this with just any girl. And then when the time comes, when you've built your groundwork, that's when you lead.